After a horrific event, a Latino college student discovers his relationship with language has changed. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. And today I have a bit of an interesting story for you. It is Short Story Tuesday, so I want to talk about some interesting short form literature that I've encountered. And today's short story is all about language and hate crimes. I am referring to The Art of Translation by Benjamin Alire Saenz, which was published in 2012 in the short story collection Everything Begins and Ends at the Kentucky Club. For those who don't know, Benjamin Saenz is a Latino American writer who has been getting their work published for quite a while. 20 or so years. They've written poetry, novels, short story collections, and material intended for children as well, children's stories. And they've won a number of awards for their work. It's also important to note that pretty late into his career, Benjamin came out as a gay man to his wife, to the public. He ended up getting divorced as a result, but he felt more comfortable in being who he was. And he says he often infused that his questions, his sort of journey into his writing. So you see that a little bit. This was written in 2012 after he had come out, but I feel like it is still very much introspective, very much considering the cruelty or the sadness that you encounter in the world based on your encounters with various people and even your own interaction with yourself. But I very much enjoyed this. I thought it was, and I'll tell you why in the analysis section, but I would be very interested in reading more from Benjamin in the hopes that maybe some of his longer novels captured the same energy that this seemed to put out into the world. But that remains to be seen. So without further ado, let's talk about The Art of Translation. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So The Art of Translation focuses on Nick. He is a Latino college student. At the beginning of the story, he's being questioned by the police, by paramedics, by doctors, and his family is trying to get him to talk more because, as we find out, a hate crime was committed against him when he was at college. A group of presumably white boys held him down and then carved various things into his back with a knife, which is not good. The police are trying to figure it out. I don't know what happened to the boys, but this has left Nick completely changed. He's not talking as much. He has a lot of questions about language in particular. And he goes to the hospital, talks to the police, and finally arrives home, where he just sits in his room. But his family, including his sisters, yell at the reporters who are on the front lawn, who are trying to sort of interview Nick and tell a story, create a media narrative about everything. There are a bunch of magazines that call the house, as well as people who support and are even full of more hate than the people who harmed him. And his parents just hang up the phone and decide not to discuss it. But again, Nick is mostly just just staying in his room, thinking about what happened to him, and his family really wants him to sort of get out and experience the world again, but he doesn't really know what to do about that. But eventually he does decide to rejoin the world, sort of talking with his family and trying to better understand what happened to him. He goes for a run. We see that he can't really leave the nearby area because of what happened to him. He's afraid to venture off into the desert as he lives near Albuquerque and whatnot, or El Paso, that sort of area. But he does eventually get a waiter job in the city, and doesn't really like the job, but is happy to not really have to do more than he's comfortable with. And then one day he heads to a nearby bar. It's there that he meets an older woman named Sylvia, who's old enough to be his mother. And they start flirting with one another. The bartender's like, isn't he a little young for you? But they decide to go into Mexico, which is nearby, and they go a little bit, they drink a little bit more. And specifically, they go to the Kentucky Club. Every single story in this collection takes place somewhere in the Kentucky Club. And after enough time has passed, that they go back to Sylvia's place, have sex, which surprises Nick, but he's very insistent that she not touch his back. And when he wakes up, she asks him some questions about it, and he storms out because he doesn't want to talk about it. But later on, he goes to the bar and apologizes to her, and they have sex again. But when he wakes up, he finds that she's trying to take off his shirt, and he doesn't want that. She ends up throwing a glass cigarette holder or something at his back, which causes him a little bit of pain, and he just again storms out and kind of breaks things off. And as he's considering things near the end of the story, he wonders if he in fact did deserve to be harmed, or if it was inevitable that he was going to be harmed by these racist white boys. And then he thinks more about how he has to relearn words, and maybe it's not the words that are important, but it's Nick himself that's important, showing there's a change going on inside him, and he has to work on translating himself to maybe this new world that has developed. And that's where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, there's a fair bit to talk about with the art of translation. I think one of the more important themes that Saenz is touching upon here is the before and the after. What happens after a traumatic event happens to you. Nick finds himself changed by the experience, which I wouldn't doubt would happen. If you experience a hate crime, that's going to drastically change your inner being if you're able to survive that hate crime. He and the world are different. There's an acknowledgement there. Maybe more at the end of the story, he acknowledges that he is different, but the world is a different place in how he views it. He definitely views it as a more dangerous place, and words in particular have changed as well. He has a new relationship with words where he's asking about the translation of Spanish words that he comes across that he took for granted before, but are now widely different. He's sort of taking pause and kind of reflecting on these words that he's come across and saying, oh, well, that doesn't mean the same thing as before. We see that happen with the hate crime, but we also see that happen when he has sex. Like, love and sex and orgasm mean different things than they had meant before he had sex with Sylvia. So there is some positives happening in this new world, but it's paired with the fact that Sylvia wants to know what happened to his back, and he just refuses to talk about it, and it really ruins the small relationship that he has going on with this woman. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of absurd to focus on words. like specifically, like in their translation to sort of get through and better understand this new world. But it really does reflect on how this new world exists, because you might have thought a certain word meant one thing, before an incident that happened, but afterwards, like your mind is different, you are different, so that word is going to mean a different thing to you. And your experience of the world is drastically changing as well. So I do like how Saenz kind of gets at that, how a traumatic event in particular, like a lot of this is related to trauma, has changed Nick, and he's not as positive, as hopeful, as raring to go in this world as he was before. But Saenz is also touching upon how cruel the world is. He presents the world as a kind of a devastating place, where this all seems inevitable. The violence that exists in the world, the death that you might find in the desert, or even just in life in general, is its natural state. You can't really expect much more. There's an interesting quote that I would like to read to you from this. Angela kept repeating, "How could they have done this? How could they have done this to you?" But didn't she know? She was 8 years older. How could she not know how cruel the world was? No, not the world. The world was neither cruel nor kind. But the boys in the world, it was the boys that were cruel. That's how they translated the world, with fist, with rage, with violence. And that's an interesting quote. Again, it goes back to like translation and the meaning of words. Like these presumably white boys like translated the world by carving it into Nick's back. This, like, Angela should have known this. Like, she asked, like, why did they do this to you? And it's just like, that's just how the world goes, that you can't really expect much different. Like, hate crimes are going to happen, which is a very bleak kind of outlook to have. And you also see that where, like, again, it's talking about death in the desert, where he goes for a run and he's like, the boys are out there in the desert. The death is out there in the desert. That's I don't want to go into the desert. I can't, because that's all that's awaiting me. He's not really able to kind of cross that line and go into the desert when he's going on his runs, especially later in the story. So again, it's suggesting that maybe he might have known this world was cruel the entire time, but this is kind of an awakening for him, a trauma-induced awakening. There is some hope that maybe that's not the case with Sylvia, but we do kind of see that he's unwilling to sort of explore that trauma with her, even though she might be a good listening partner, someone to chat with, who might have had their own experiences in the world and could kind of relate to what he might have been going through. But he just refuses to talk about it, and that kind of impacts the relationship, and really it only kind of seems to amplify the message that Nick has been experiencing, and that is that everyone will kind of just let you down in this cruel world. And not only is it cruel, but it does seem like the hate crime was inevitable, as I've said already. He suggests, like, rather than begging or pleading for his life when they were carving these mean words into his back, he should have just greeted them and said, "Thank you. I understand your god of cruelty. This is a necessary sacrifice. Do as you wish." Which again is a very weird kind of mindset to have, but I do think it kind of shows how Nick is sort of defeated. Maybe not completely all the way. Maybe there's room for him to sort of recover and better understand the world, but and having that kind of mindset does kind of indicate that Nick hasn't ended up in a better place by all of this. That it might take years upon years to kind of get out of that mindset that this is deserved or inevitable, that this is just what you have to expect. And I would say I kind of disagree that this is inevitable, that the world is a cruel place, because if that were the case, as I say about many writers who argue that the world is a cruel place, like if it were the case, civilization could not thrive. We just simply can't work together as a society if we're innate cruel beings. Like, yeah, sure, there are some cruel people out there, but they are more in the minority than they are in the majority. Because again, if our constant state was cruelty and devastation and harm towards one another, we couldn't work together as a society. But I think because of Saenz's own experience of the world as a gay Latino man, he probably sees different. And maybe that's just showing my naivete, my experience as a cisgender white man in the world. I probably see things different than Benjamin does. And given what I've been witnessing with immigrations and custom enforcement in 2025, where ICE is purposely going out of their way to be cruel and harmful towards immigrants, towards people who are not white, maybe Nick in this story is kind of correct. Maybe this is kind of inevitable, or maybe not inevitable, but this is going to happen from time to time because cruel people have power. Cruel people are left unquestioned in their thoughts and their mindset and the way that they interact with the world. I can kind of see both sides of the thing, but I'm really hoping that this kind of violence is in the minority. That doesn't sort of ease anyone's thoughts or worries if you're the one experiencing the violence, but maybe there's some hope in knowing that violence is temporary, and those people, their views of the world will not be made the primary sort of ingrained mindset. That hope and good and goodwill towards others is kind of the default. But I don't know, stories like these really throw that into question. Anyway, those are my thoughts on The Art of Translation, a really good short story. Many of the short stories in this collection are phenomenal, amazing, well written, great characters, very touching kind of stories that Benjamin is writing. I highly recommend that you seek this out. I found this at my local library. Don't forget to patronize your local libraries. They might have fascinating short story collections. Go seek this out. Read The Art of Translation if you can find it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this author or the short story collection or the short story if they don't already know. Join the Discord, which there's a link to in the description if you want to have further conversations about these kinds of things. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and language-based travels. Farewell.